Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. We have got a ton of news to go through regarding Cunha, Delap, Gyökeres, transfer news on the midfield, links with Bruno to Saudi, Amorim quit threat, and a massive injury boost ahead of the final tomorrow to run through. So let's jump straight into it. Let's kick off with the talk of the town at the moment. Matheus Cunha, obviously we had the discussions yesterday and the reports from Fabrizio Romano coming out, effectively saying that personal terms have been agreed. That's been the catalyst for this deal. Once personal terms are agreed, then we can move on with the deal because we know his price. We don't have to negotiate with Wolves. We know it's the kind of, the £62.5 million is his release clause. We know that Wolves are happy to accept it in installments as well. It'd just be a case of working out what installments, whether it's going to be done over 2, 3, 4 or 5 installments is the kind of only thing, which should be relatively simple for the club to kind of negotiate. So it's not like we're haggling for, prices and stuff like that as well. We might pay a little bit more to get it done, more favourable terms for us as well. So, but then since then, an explosion of news regarding Matheus Cunha. So Ben Jacobs had said that United are optimistic of agreeing terms with Cunha this week. A full agreement on terms is close. Positive discussions are now at an advanced stage. South American journalist, fairly good, saying that Manchester United have reached an agreement with Matheus Cunha and are finalising the details with him. United will pay the £62.5 million release clause. Sky was saying that Matheus Cunha is set to join Manchester United after the season ends this weekend. So that's a quick deal in the eyes of United anyway, who are notoriously slow at doing deals. This would have been a transfer saga in the past where we would have signed him like on deadline day or something. So despite interest from other clubs, Cunha wants to play for United and the deal is almost agreed. The club are aware of the conditions for that clause to be met. So according to Sky, basically a deal done. United want to get him done before the season ends after the season ends this weekend as well, which would be insane. Matheus Cunha is set to become a new Manchester United player. Done deal. Total agreement reached with his entourage on personal terms. Only paperwork left. Cunha to United. Done deal. Full agreement between the striker and United. United will pay around £67.5 million. So £62.5 million clause plus 5 million extras as well that came from Rudy Galletti and a South American kind of journalist as well, suggesting that United will pay £5 million in extras, maybe to get the deal spread out over a longer period of time, similar to what we did with Joshua Zirkzee. Matteo, who's a good source, said Matheus Cunha to United is only a matter of time. And then we've had Laurie Whitwell saying that under the terms of the contract, Cunha's compensation clause is to be paid in 3 installments. The first upon signing, then 2 equal parts over the following 2 years, but it remains to be seen whether United will try to negotiate more favourable terms. So we're kind of saying we'll just give 3 payments over 3 years for the deal, but we might try and do it over 4 or 5 by paying a little bit extra maybe. That couldn't be ruled out as well. But all signs are pointing, and Romano come out last night again, kind of with the update, effectively saying that it's going to be a here we go soon. So this is a deal I'm very confident that's going to kind of get done over the line, because there is too much smoke for there not to be any fire. He's been seen as our kind of top priority for that kind of inside 10 or that left 10 position, which is exactly where he plays for with Wolves as well. So I'm excited. I know there are concerns. There are concerns with every signing that we make, and you can overanalyze things as well and overthink things. But at the end of the day, I do think he ticks a lot of boxes. He's a good age, Premier League experienced, proven kind of goal scorer in the Premier League as well. Great injury record, fits the system. So what more could we kind of ask for our first kind of, effectively one of our first major signings under Ruben Amorim in this summer that's seen as, the one to kind of, start that rebuild. And I don't think you could sign a better player for that position, which shows that the club are backing Ruben Amorim with his kind of system and stuff as well, which is exciting. But give us your thoughts and opinions on Matheus Cunha in the comments below. Now, the other player that we've been massively linked with that we know is our another one of our top priorities is Liam Delap. So there's been a bit of news coming out from Laurie Whitwell last night regarding that deal. So Manchester United executives have held face-to-face talks with Liam Delap and are advancing on a move for Matheus Cunha. Delap, 22, was given permission by Ipswich Town to travel to Manchester to get a first-hand sense of what a transfer to Old Trafford would entail. United have competition from several clubs, including Chelsea, and Delap is expected to enter meaningful discussions with all suitors before taking time to decide his move. United have the finances to sign Delap and Cunha, irrespective of how Wednesday's Europa League final against Tottenham Hotspurs goes, where the winners will secure Champions League football for next season. Other options in the forward positions have been considered, including Brentford's Brian Mbeumo, Sporting's Viktor Gyökeres, and Napoli's Victor Osimhen. So Laurie Whitwell coming out saying that we have held face-to-face talks with Liam Delap. He's travelled to Old Trafford or Carrington to have kind of face-to-face conversations around what where we see him in the squad, what is kind of like, and all of those bits as well. He did also say, though, to err on the side of caution, Chelsea's going to be doing it with several Premier League teams as well, which I'm not sure sits well with me, but, you know, that's his job, that's his agent's job as well. You know, he wants to secure the move that's right for him, so can't really blame him for having a, you know, a mooch around and seeing what's available and what's what with other teams that are potentially interested in him as well. But that's you know, that's a big development. If you're holding face-to-face talks, clearly is a player then that we're looking to get over the line. Ben Jacobs said that Liam Delap has been told he can expect significant minutes should he choose to join Manchester United. He remains the top choice. Delap is waiting to see how the Europa League final and the race for Champions League spots unfold. He has not gone quite as far as to tell clubs a lack of European football is a deal breaker, but it is believed to be an important factor. So Ben Jacobs, who can be quite hit and miss, suggesting that Delap has been offered significant minutes at United, which might kind of, you know, tip him in our kind of favour as well, because we know he does want to go somewhere where he's playing football. So that might be a kind of string in our bow in terms of convincing Liam Delap to come to United when he has a host of Premier League teams and clubs from abroad, I'm sure, as well, interested in him. And Sky is saying that Manchester United currently lead the race to sign Delap. Liam Delap's final decision will be influenced by whether or not United qualify for the Champions League. So Sky going against what Ben Jacobs said, suggesting that maybe the decision will depend on Champions League football as well. But the reports are that if we get Champions League football, then maybe we're going to go for this man, Viktor Gyökeres. So Manchester United are set to rival Arsenal for Viktor Gyökeres. Amorim is pushing for him as he looks to remodel United's attack. That came from TalkSport. Christopher Michael, though, who's a good source, said that Manchester United have a chance of signing Viktor Gyökeres if they win the Europa League and qualify for Champions League. So, you know, these seem to be the two strikers now that obviously it could change tomorrow because we've been in this situation before where it was Liam Delap and Victor Osimhen, you know, and then obviously the Osimhen stories have died down since it's been come out from Romano that, you know, no Premier League teams are willing to pay his kind of wages or his salary demands. You know, and maybe this is one where if we get Champions League football, maybe we do go for Viktor Gyökeres, and if we don't, we know we've got the budget to go for Liam Delap, but we don't want to sit in a position where, you know, we don't move for either and then end up with neither, because that would be an absolute disaster for us as well. Imagine that. Imagine if we just sit on our hands and not try to get these deals done, and then Delap decides to go to Chelsea, and then Gyökeres does a deal with Arsenal, and we're left holding our hands saying, oh, guys, over here, do you not fancy coming over here? So you've got to be in the race for these players, and you've got to try and get these deals done. Whether it's, you know, we'll all have our personal preferences over who we think the better option would be, Delap or Viktor Gyökeres, but they seem to be the two kind of players that are heavily linked with us at the moment for the striker position. Ben Jacobs come out saying Manchester United want 2 quick signings within the first weeks of the window with a number 9 and other the other priority to strengthen in. So again, Ben Jacobs can be a little bit hit and miss, but suggesting that we want to get 2 quick signings, i.e. Delap and Cunha. Cunha we know is effectively done. We're just waiting for the here we go regarding that one. Obviously, Laurie Whitwell saying that we've held face-to-face talks with Liam Delap, but he is speaking to other clubs, so hopefully we can maybe get a decision on there. Viktor Gyökeres might be an option if we win tomorrow night, and my God, I hope we win tomorrow night. As well. So yeah, starting to heat up in that kind of position. I think so. It's, you know, the 3 names, well, 2 names for the striker position because Cunha's effectively done. Delap or Gyökeres. Give us your options, give us your choice, or give us your thoughts on who you're picking in the comments below. I suppose that's the obvious question to ask you there. And then keeping with the striker situation, Graham Bailey said Amorim and his coaching staff believe that a ready-made striker would be the better route for them to take as a team, but Jason Wilcox is convinced that Liam Delap is the best option for the club. So now Graham Bailey can be a bit hit and miss as well, effectively saying that Amorim and his kind of staff believe going for someone more experienced, aka Gyökeres, but Jason Wilcox because his relationship and kind of eye for players and staff wants to go with Liam Delap. I don't think there's any. The Muppeteers were just talking about this the other day, and he doesn't think that there's any kind of conflict. Everyone's going to have their preferences. You will have your preferences as well, and it's going to be the same within the club as well. So it's going to be interesting to see which kind of route we go down, because do we just go for Delap anyway? I was thinking about this before. Do we go for Delap anyway, and then that extra £25 million, because there's only a £25 million difference between Viktor Gyökeres and Liam Delap. Liam Delap's 30. Reports from Romano yesterday was about 55 million for Gyökeres. Do we go for Delap, and then that £25 million can get you a goalkeeper? Potentially, or could go towards a midfielder, or could go towards a wing back, or whatever your other kind of preference. Could get Delap and Cherky for the same price as Viktor Gyökeres. So I can see why there's kind of conflict, within the club as well, because again, it depends on the budget, depends on sales, Champions League, all of these things, which are still up in the air at the moment. But we're going to know by tomorrow night where we kind of stand as well. So it's going to get interesting, I think, in the kind of market. I mean, especially if we do get Champions League football, going to be massively interesting to see what we kind of do and how far we can stretch that kind of budget and what United do with their rebuild, because I think they're going to go, the Muppeteers were saying before that if United do get Champions League football, they're willing to spend the money to stay in Champions League football. They don't want this yo-yoing anymore. They don't want to be, are we going to make top four? Are we not going to make top four? They are willing to spend the money to stay in Champions League football, because they don't want to keep kind of, doing what we're doing at the moment, effectively thinking, we finished third, sixth, eighth, back to Champions League again. Like it's unsustainable for a big club like United. We need to be guaranteed Champions League football every year in order to kind of progress as well. So, it's going to be really fascinating to see what does happen if we win tomorrow night. Let's move for the other transfer news. So Manchester United have held talks with Ederson in the last days, and there will be other contacts after the Europa League final. United has the advantage of having moved before City and Juventus, but Atalanta are asking for a minimum of 60 million. I don't know if that's 60 million pounds. I'm going to assume it's euros because it came from Alfredo Padula, who has been quite decent in the past. A little bit hit and miss recently, but a couple of the stories that he's brought out over recent months have actually been backed up by other more credible sources as well. So one to kind of pay attention to, effectively saying, that where Ederson is the other kind of midfielder that we're linked with. I would put him as the top linked midfielder. He's the name that always pops up. We were interested in him last summer as well. So he's clearly a player of interest for us as well. 60 million euros. I think that's a little bit expensive personally as well. But again, would that probably depend on sales or Champions League football as well, or maybe even both. But we know Eriksen's leaving, so it does free up a little bit of funds with his wages and salary as well, which could be used to go towards it as well. I like Ederson. I think he's a good midfielder. So I do think I would rate that sign. Imagine we got like Gyökeres, Cunha, and Ederson. That would be definitely a step in the right direction, in my opinion. Or even Delap. I'm cool with Liam Delap as well. With Matheus Cunha, so you've got someone that's got a bit more experience behind him as well and can share the goal scoring burden. But yeah, that would be a good move as well. So it gives you thoughts on Ederson in the comments. Be interesting to hear what you've got to say regarding Ederson potentially as the midfield option. Now, another player that's been kind of linked with us recently or yesterday was, and this is from Matteo as well. Now, Matteo's really good. He's kind of broke stories before Romano, works with Romano as well. So he is actually, in my opinion, a top tier kind of journalist, saying that Manchester United are monitoring Davide Frattesi's situation, who has big chances of leaving Inter this month. The club made a call in recent weeks to inquire about his situation. So according to Matteo, we've made an inquiry regarding Frattesi's situation at Inter Milan as well, which would be, an interesting kind of profile. 25, central midfielder. He's valued 30-odd million on transfer market, but, isn't out of contract till 2028 as well. He's like, I've only watched him a couple of times in the Champions League as well, but from what I saw, box-to-box midfielder, work rate, tenacity, intensity, those kind of buzzwords that we've been hearing around kind of signings. Good engine, covers a lot of ground as well. Not the most progressive looking at his numbers and stats and stuff. Not the most progressive on the ball. So for somebody that wants like an Adam Wharton type midfielder, I don't think he is that. But correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. He's in the bottom 1 percentile for passes, which just to back up what I'm kind of saying there as well. But again, I've not watched him all season. I've watched a couple of the Champions League games recently, and he looked like an all-action type midfielder as well, which is actually the profile of midfielder that Amorim wants. He's not necessarily interested in passers in midfield. It's more runners. He wants runners in midfield, people with legs and that can take players on. Frattesi can definitely do that. He is up there with quite good stats in terms of progressive carries. So that's an interesting one as well. Just but obviously if Inter go on to win the Champions League, that's not going to be a cheap deal to do either as well. But then we've been hearing links with Zirkzee and Inter as well. Is there some kind of deal that could be potentially done there? Who knows? But definitely, it's a new midfielder that we've been linked with. I've not heard any links with him before. Would be an interesting profile to kind of bring in, that kind of, like I said, that energetic box-to-box kind of all-action midfielder. I think he'd be a good addition to the team. Not, like I said, not if you want ball passers and progressors. He doesn't seem to be that type of midfielder from the research and stuff that I've done. But again, if you disagree, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear what you think about that. But yeah, really interesting profile. Keep an eye on it for you. But according to Matteo, we've made calls in recent weeks, so maybe we've made an inquiry to see what the price would be and what his kind of availability would be as well. So that's definitely one to pay attention to and keep an eye on. I'll bring you any more news if it comes out or if anything develops, but give us your shouts on that in the comments below. Now, another player that we've been linked with, this is a player, actually, I thought he was way older than what he is, because it seems like we've been linked with him for years. Vanderson. So Manchester United and Tottenham have inquired for Monaco's Vanderson. No official bids, only inquiries about margins for a summer move. Monaco open to talk from 30 million euros. So get Rudy Galletti and a fairly good South American journalist as well, suggesting that United and Tottenham have made inquiries for Vanderson, 23 years old, right back, right wing back. Good player. We've been linked with him for a few years now. That's why I thought he was a bit older than what he is. Only 23, similar to Frattesi, out of contract in 2028 though as well, but has been a player that we've been I remember doing videos last summer, I think it was, regarding Vanderson, and maybe even in the January before that as well. So definitely a player that's been around, that's been linked with United for a while. Really good attacking right back, right wing back for that kind of position. Young, up and coming. I like the idea. I like the idea of that. He's good defensive stats, good offensive stats as well. Very good all-round kind of midfielder. Plays for Monaco, so it's definitely one to kind of pay attention to as well. One that maybe I could see doing a job at United. So I'll keep my eye on that one for you. That would be an interesting one to kind of bring in. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. And then the next news is regarding Bruno. So the president of Al Hilal, Fahid bin Nafal, is scheduled to meet with Bruno Fernandes after the end of the Manchester United and Tottenham match in the Europa League final. Now that came from a Saudi Arabian journalist, reposted, but guys followed by like Romano and people like that as well on X. So I'm going to assume fairly decent, suggesting that there's going to be another meeting between the president of Al Hilal and Bruno Fernandes after the Europa League final. So those stories or those links with Bruno and Saudi are not going away, despite Amorim coming out saying he wants to keep him, despite Bruno not necessarily coming out, though he hasn't come out himself and said anything, but despite the rumours that Bruno would want to stay, those links aren't going anywhere. And imagine we don't win the Europa League. Would that change Bruno's mind? Who knows? But we're going to need to kind of keep an eye on that situation for you as well, especially if there's going to be another meeting between Al Hilal's president and Bruno Fernandes after the Europa League game. So we'll kind of give you any updates or any developments, if anything comes out regarding that. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Remember, it's going to be like ridiculous money we're talking here for Bruno Fernandes personally, but also for the club as well. So we need to wait and see what happens regarding that. Now, this was really interesting that came out. So, several sources have told ESPN that Amorim has become so disenchanted with life at Manchester United in January after a run of 1 in 8 games, culminated in a 3-1 home defeat by Brighton, that he was prepared to resign, but was talked out of the idea by associates. So if you remember that game, that was the one where he smashed up the dressing room and was absolutely fuming with the players, and rightly so as well. But ESPN, this is from Mark Ogden, who's a good source as well, saying that ESPN has become so disenchanted with life that he was kind of prepared to resign. Whether that was done in anger, who knows? Because obviously he did lose his mind after that kind of defeat as well, and like I said, rightly so. But was talked out of it by associates. Although a United source told ESPN that there was no formal move by Amorim to quit, it was acknowledged that he had to be reassured by senior figures at the club, including CEO Omar Barada, that he would be backed to turn the team's fortune around. And that's one thing that I picked up from the piece from ESPN as well, saying that, Amorim was fuming, maybe doubting himself or whatever, but reassured by Omar Barada that he would be backed, which is the important thing, because, every manager is only as good as the sum of their parts, right? There's no manager in the world that can just polished turds, and they're all as good as what the kind of players and the quality of players on the pitch that fit the profile, fit the system, fit the philosophy, etc. So and Amorim's no different to that. He's just a football manager. He cannot change. He can't make Casemiro have more legs and make him cover the ground quicker, can he? He can't do those sort of things. So you're only as good as the quality of players that you've got on the pitch as well. So it's good that he's been backed and kind of told, look, we're going to back you to turn the club's fortune around as well. And then the report also went on to say, additionally, United's new football hierarchy, led by minority owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe, remained unwavered in their belief that Amorim was the right man for the job, despite the size difficulties on the pitch. Despite support from those above him at United, sources in and around the club have said that Amorim has continually questioned himself and also the club's ability to overhaul the first team squad to his satisfaction as well. So again, this is why maybe he keeps coming out in the press conferences and saying we need to be brave. We need to kind of make brave decisions and difficult decisions at the club as well, because he is in a rush. I've said this before. He is in a rush to get things done quite quick, but he needs to be back to overhaul the squad in order to do that. But going off of what he said before, it does sound like he's had that kind of reassurance. And then Mark Ogden also went on to say, one source told ESPN that in recent weeks Amorim has started to love the challenge of reviving United, but that he is still battling to get the mindset right. So that's the one thing, big challenge that, and he said that in his press conference, as he worked, can switch it on and off like a tap. We know it's a mentality issue as well as a quality issue at United as well. But I thought that was a really interesting piece from Mark Ogden, effectively saying that, after the Brighton defeat, Amorim was questioning himself, was talking about potentially resigning. And I think that would have been done in anger after, smashing up the TV and stuff in the dressing room after that particular game as well, because it was a shit show. I remember that game. It was awful to kind of watch as well. And I can't blame Amorim for sitting there thinking, now, do I really want to kind of do this? This is maybe a bigger job than he expected when he first came in. But give us your shouts on the Amorim situation in the comments below. And then the final story is massive injury boost. So Joshua Zirkzee has a good chance of making the Europa League squad. He's also travelling and has been in team training in recent days, has worked hard in his rehab. If he were to make it, it said it would be on the bench. Clearly, it would be on the bench. He's been out for a couple of months now, so he's never going to be fit enough to start a game or sharp enough to start a game, and you wouldn't want to do that in a final. But that is massive kind of news as well to suggest that maybe Joshua Zirkzee could be on the bench for tomorrow night as well. That would be a massive boost, because even if he can come on for 10 minutes or injury time or to take a penalty maybe, I would be all for that as well. So massive kind of news regarding Joshua Zirkzee. But Sully Talks also said that Lenny Yoro and Diego Dalot are part of the travelling squad for the Europa League final. It's unclear as of now if they are in the playing squads, but they have both been in first team training in recent days. So we could also have Diego Dalot, who I know has had a questionable season, but I do prefer him at the right wing back than Mazraoui. I think Mazraoui's better as the right kind of centre half personally. And then obviously Lenny Yoro has been fantastic recently as well. So if we could get potentially Zirkzee, Yoro and Diego Dalot back, obviously all the squad are travelling. Everybody, even the players that are injured and not going to play, are all travelling. We did it in the last Europa League final. If you remember, Eric Bailly and Zlatan were on crutches and they were stood on the sideline waiting for the full-time whistle to go as well. So all the teams kind of travel. So the fact they're travelling isn't necessarily a tell, but Sully Talk's saying that if they've been in first team training, then potentially we could have a triple injury boost as well. No mention of Dalot though as well, so we'll need to see how that kind of plays out. But massively exciting, big injury boost ahead of the big game tomorrow night as well. Give us your thoughts on that in the comments and on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.